keep mouthing off and get the record for the quickest loss of your teeth, which I can make happen to you for no charge.
Well, the time is finally here. Quentin Tarantino's 10th and final film, The Movie Critic, is something we're gonna be learning about soon. So until then, what better way to celebrate than with this? Released in 2011, you may be wondering, what is Catch 44? Well, it's a mediocre Bruce Willis movie that's oddly enough not made for TV, but if you already knew that, you may also be wondering, what does this have to do with Quentin Tarantino? Well, nothing. It just seems to heavily copy his style. His early, non-linear style, seen in movies like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. It's one of the things that made those movies so great, and despite the fact that it can be seen in his later films, it's not something that was relied on throughout his career. I don't know if Catch 44 is trying to be a Tarantino movie, isn't exactly the topic of anybody's interest, but it's the only thing about it that stands out. In all honesty, it seems like the product of somebody who thinks his movies are overrated, and felt they could copy his style and have the same results. Again, speculation, I don't know what the idea was behind this, and if you've seen it, you probably don't know either. Is it a shameless copy, or is it just another bad, modern Bruce Willis movie? Well, let's find out. This is Catch 44. The movie opens at some point that is clearly not the beginning, and we see Mel, played by Bruce Willis, with some dialogue.
Always liked you. Always looked after you. I never trusted you.
We then cut to another character, Tess, played by Malin Åkerman, in a scene that gives me a lot of ending vibes, given the blood spatter and dazed expression.
Yep. Yeah, she's right, Tess. Everybody knows that already.
And with that, the movie officially begins. I say that because what we just saw was pointless. Those two brief scenes don't add anything, but they do give us an idea of how this movie will likely end, which again is not a good thing. We'll get back to this issue later. We see the rest of our trio, Karen and Dawn, played by Nikki Reed and Deborah Ann Woll respectively, as they have a discussion about...
Guys compromise when they leave the toilet seat down. They do it because they know they can't win. And I'm not faking it because I don't pretend not to mind when they do leave the toilet seat up. I think you're confusing yourself. No, I think it's just too complicated for you to understand.
Or we could agree that I'm right because that's a compromise.
I'll fake it, and we can agree on that.
But you're compromising to agree on faking it. I can explain it to you if it's too complicated.
You know, one of the reasons why a lot of people may think Quentin Tarantino is overrated is because something like Pulp Fiction may seem like a lot of random nonsense without much of a plot. Undeniably, that's kind of true, but it's also kind of the point. That movie is made up of several events that connect in a number of ways, and a big part of what holds that together is the entertaining dialogue. Rather it be Samuel L. Jackson's newfound Christianity, John Travolta reviewing a milkshake, or Quentin himself explaining what type of storage he does not provide. It's so entertaining, you don't need an amazing plot to keep you invested. With something like this, I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this. Just look at them back to back.
They make one show. That show's called a pilot. Then they show that one show to the people who pick shows. And on the strength of that one show, they decide if they want to make more shows.
See, most women apply secret number 2 to one thing. Sex. The rest of the time we're too real.
That's an impossibility. Trying to forget anything as intriguing as this would be an exercise in futility.
Is that a fact?
And this thingamajig right here, I just don't know.
You'd be damned if any slope's gonna put the greasy yellow hands on his boy's birthright, so he hid it. In one place he knew he could hide something, his ass.
Fourth nun, who's been eavesdropping, steps out and says, I don't care what you say, Father, I am not washing my mouth in that water after she sits in it.
Now, just to clarify, I never expected this to be Pulp Fiction or any Quentin Tarantino movie, but when the formula is copied so heavily, you expect them at least to try. Nothing about this conversation makes me want to keep watching or remotely care, and when it comes to a non-linear movie like this, that's kind of an issue. We find out these three are associates to Mel and are waiting for someone, but it's been way longer than it should be, so they decide to hold everybody at gunpoint. I don't know, I'm sure it'll make sense later. Okay, I was wrong. This is not the beginning of the movie. And also this. And that was a scene from Pulp Fiction in which one main character was killed by another main character in the middle of the movie, in a scene that chronologically takes place last, so that character can appear again later. The reason this works is because we actually gave a damn and know who he is in the movie, while also being something that you'd never see coming. If you're sick of seeing Pulp Fiction, here are some more examples. In case you're not familiar, those were other Tarantino movies in which this kind of thing was done to great effect. Now imagine the big shootout in Django Unchained if King's death was shown to us in the opening scene.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
Pretty fucking stupid, isn't it? So now that we know most of what's gonna happen, let's actually begin the movie.
Kara? What? Astour.
Okay, I don't have a reference for this one, but I think they're supposed to be doing something cool or interesting there. She just got out of the shower. I've already given you the grocery list, okay? Apples, cheese, coffee mix, bread. So the three meet up and explain that they've been sent by Mel to intercept a truck driver who's bringing drugs to the diner at night. They also have to find out who the pickup is, which should be relatively simple as the two drivers don't know each other. This alleviates the fear of one of them going to the feds after getting ripped off, but the only problem is the soon-to-be deceased Kara isn't taking this seriously.
What? I was listening. Other side of the river. Fine.
This doesn't really have anything to do with her eventual death, but it is worth noting they've never been given a job like this. Well, they're off anyway, and we're introduced to a new character, Ronnie, played by Forest Whitaker, who appears to be having car trouble.
In the cot. Because I'm not in the car. I'm not in the pot. I'm in the cot. Which is where I wish I was right now.
So that's, a line that's said here, but it soon becomes clear he is not on the up and up and kills the cop with needlessly bad effects. It's then explained that Kara and Dawn are stepsisters, which is not really important, and Kara proceeds to question the job at hand. Dawn claims she just doesn't know how to have fun, which is odd because Kara was previously deemed irresponsible, but since we haven't even gotten through half an hour of the movie, it's best we cut back to the shootout and reveal that Dawn is also dead. That done, we can cut back to the car and have the only relatively clever part of the movie.
Oh, the 80s, and not just the 80s, but Bruce Willis in the 80s? No! Oh, yeah.
Yes, in case you didn't know, that was at one time a thing. The inclusion here is kind of genius, something the movie is heavily lacking. They get pulled over by Ronnie, now disguised as a cop, who thinks saying weird things makes the movie good.
So you're sweating over there, but, you just wear it so well.
He eventually tells them they have low tires and they should go to the nearest truck stop, which I guess happens to be where they're going anyway, and it's further explained that this job is kind of weird, given they apparently messed up the previous one. But Tess says that's why they gave us such an easy job, and Mel would never steer them wrong. They fight about this for a bit, followed by humor that isn't that good, and we watch the same bad CGI shootout for the third time. And I gotta say, now that we've got to know these characters, I really appreciate the magnitude of this moment. I mean, who would have thought two of the main characters killed in one gunfight? Now that the movie actually is half over, it's all the more impactful. as is hitting the like button and subscribing down below. I know there's a few Catch 44 fans out there, but... wait. Is there? This leaves only Tess and Billy the cook, played by Sean Wingham, until Ronnie shows up too, kills more innocent people for a shock value, and it's revealed the whole thing is not what it seems. So, back to the topic of how this relates to Quentin Tarantino. If this was one of his movies, the fact that this mysterious guy all of a sudden started dancing would probably mean something pretty memorable was about to happen. Instead, we see that Tess worked at a strip club, and Ronnie, who's still doing the name thing, saves her from some asshole. Unfortunately, due to this movie being very boring, there is not a lot to say about these lengthy scenes, but the point is, Ronnie introduces her to Mel, who has, like a lot of other Bruce Willis movies, not been in much of it, but I'm sure this scene is gonna make up for that. Let's see, he's a dick, insulting, says weird random things. He has nice facial hair that kind of stands out. He was in a real Tarantino movie. You know, I'm gonna be honest, finding the opening clip for this video, something I do for comedic purposes, wasn't fucking easy.
You think you are going to work for a few years, collect your 401k, and retire to Boca Raton?
So, if you haven't figured it out yet, they fucked up the last job. Not sure when the other two got involved, but the whole thing is an obvious setup by Mel to have them killed. Everybody's in on it, aside from the two people Ronnie killed, and if you're wondering why Ronnie's done this, along with turning on Mel, it's because he's obsessed with Tess, someone he knew for about 15 minutes.
That's fucking stupid!
He then demands that Billy give him the money that he was paid by Mel to kill them, which he denies having, and throughout this prolonged scene, a lot of stuff is said. Most notably that Tess is too stupid to realize Mel isn't good, and claims the whole thing is a test. But Ronnie is too deranged to realize they're not going to be a thing, and eventually demands that Tess shoot Billy or he'll kill them both. This is followed by proposing, of course.
Marry me.
Because why the hell wouldn't it be? But she pulls the gun on Ronnie instead, a shootout occurs, which we can't see, and Mel eventually shows up to see Ronnie is the only survivor. Well, he was the only survivor, but I'll give the movie some credit. The conversation they have isn't that bad, and only lasted about 7 minutes. I call it the movie's highlight. But it turns out Tess is not dead, and I do kind of like Mel's reaction.
Hey, baby. Tess, what's up?
I guess the lesson here is if you're gonna watch this movie, the last 12 minutes is about all you need. Still don't know what happened to Billy. His body is never seen. I'd kind of like to think he got away, but it wouldn't be a Quentin Tarantino ripoff without copying one of the endings. Only thing is, in Reservoir Dogs, when Mr. Pink took off with the money after essentially just hiding, it was kind of hilarious. In this, she steals Mel's car, and the money is just there, and that's it. Given it was her refusal that got the other two killed, I don't exactly like seeing her make out in the end. Not exactly a likable character, but that was Catch 44, and it's pretty bad. Whether it's trying to be Tarantino or just a movie that thinks it's a lot smarter than it is, as that's what Tarantino would look like without the intelligent writing, Catch 44 is a dull, poorly constructed film that's simply not entertaining no matter how you look at it. I get the budget wasn't that great, thus being a reason to lessen the blood thrown at the screen, but that's got nothing to do with the lazy writing and a narrative that does nothing to keep you invested. There's no twist to be found, it's blatantly obvious what's going on, but non-linear storytelling does nothing for this, and the way it's presented is done in a way that I would call backwards thinking. Opening the movie with the main characters dying is not engaging in any way, and the only reason you should ever do this is if there's a specific reason. Instead, they just gave away what was supposed to be a shocking moment, but then again, you'd have to actually have a storyline that was well written and characters that were somewhat likable. Their deaths wouldn't have meant a thing anyway, due to the fact that everyone in this ranges from unlikable, mentally insane, or dull as shit. And yes, The Hateful Eight is a movie about 8 people you're supposed to hate, but due to intelligent writing, 3 hours of wanting 8 people to die has never been so much fun. This movie has none of that, the dialogue is just stupid, almost no comedy to be found, and obviously having Bruce Willis in a couple of scenes is not enough to make it worth watching, as it never is. It's a dumb film with an even dumber plot, and yes, there are some Tarantino movies I don't need to go back to, but in the end, his least good is emphatically better than this. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, if you've only known someone for 15 minutes, don't automatically assume you're together, especially if that means killing innocent people. So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.